website. Oop. All right, this is my first time doing this, so please excuse any fumbles that I have. But good morning, everyone. I'm Danielle Goryl, VP of Growth Marketing at Lose It. And I'm joined today by Burton Homan, a Senior Product Manager at Lose It. Today we're going to tell you about a time our company made an intentional, well-tested decision to move a previously free feature behind the paywall. We tested it thoroughly, and all signs pointed to moving forward. iOS was fine, but over time, Android told us a different story, and those users pushed back. So we broke platform parity and tried a new model. But we also had to recover from the negative impact that we had from paywalling the feature in the first place. So this is a story about staying curious and adapting and working cross-functionally together. So let's get to it. All right, so who we are. Let me tell you a little bit about Lose It. Lose It's mission is to mobilize the world to achieve a healthy weight. We support users on their health and wellness journeys. We are a freemium model, and premium gives users 40+ features, and we continue to expand. I have to say, a lot of those features are very compelling also. We want free to be genuinely useful on its own, but premium features fund innovation and new feature development. Every decision lives in that balance. Keep free strong and premium worth paying for. We launched premium at $39.99 and have not raised prices since then, even though most of our competitors have. So logging is at the heart of what we do. Ease of logging is critical to our app for engagement and habit formation. There are 4 ways for users to log that I'll be talking about today. So this is search, manual text search. This is free to users and something that our product team has worked on and spent a lot of time improving over the years to make sure it is the best experience possible. You can scan a barcode for packaged food, take a photo of your phone, or log with your voice. So throughout the presentation, I'll be talking about these different logging methods, and now you'll know what I'm talking about. But the barcode scanner, the second one over, is what we're going to focus on today. So here's where the story starts. Should the barcode scanner be free? Barcode scanning is convenient, popular, and had always been free. However, there's a big question of if the barcode scanner should still be free. This was not a decision that we made lately, but we had signals pointing us in this direction. Market signal. We saw competitors moving similar features behind the paywall and seeing success. And then the product signal. Our premium product was getting better and stronger with advanced logging and AI features. We had photo logging, and voice logging was close to launch. Should we move the barcode to make an advanced logging toolkit? Based on the market and product signals, we decided to move forward with testing the barcode as paid. So how we tested. We're a data-driven company, so we approached this very methodically. We had 3 user cohorts, new users who are new to the app and just discovering Lose It and don't have the same expectations, reactivated users who are returning after a certain amount of time, and then existing base users who had been consistently using the product without a long break. We also tested on both iOS and Android because platform parity was very much important to us at that time, and a decision we would later reconsider. And then we worked closely with customer care to plan, because we knew that there was going to be pushback from users. We also coordinated very closely and collaborated with product and leadership to roll this out. And then lastly, we rolled this out very slowly. We started with a very small audience and gradually increased as we monitored the metrics. This allowed us to catch any major issues early and get a sense of feedback. Here's just one snippet of a dashboard that we look at and monitor when we run an experiment. This is just a snippet, but it gives you an idea of what we consider and how much we monitor these experiments. Initially, the experiments appeared to be a success. Revenue was up, conversion to premium was strong, engagement remained steady, and there was no significant drop in retention. It appeared to be the right call to move ahead, and we did so confidently, locking the feature for new and reactivated users on iOS and Android. But over time, some red flags started to emerge on Android, and we started seeing troubling trends. Our ratings were down, acquisition was suffering, We were getting a lot of negative reviews and a lot of negative reviews specifically mentioning the barcode. Burton's gonna walk you through what we saw in the data and why Android reacted differently than iOS. So I'll pass it over to Burton.
Cool. Thank you. Awesome, thank you so much, Danielle. So really, it was a tale of two platforms that we were seeing. So this is the iOS App Store rating that we saw month to month from the time we locked the barcode, and that was the Google Play Store. So pretty clear discrepancy that we were seeing in terms of how these users were reacting to it. And as Danielle said, we really have tried to keep platform parity between our two, on iOS and Android. It makes many things a lot easier, not just for users, but also engineers and developers too. Our big notice point here where we're like, hey, we need to take an action is as our reviews were starting to reach below 4 stars. That really would have been like it would have killed our new user acquisition if you go to our Play Store, seeing a app with a below 4-star rating, we wouldn't have been able to do any sort of new user acquisition. So we knew we needed to take action. And the thing that was interesting with this is we did tons of A/B testing on this, as Danielle mentioned. So this wasn't a red flag initially, and we can see this chart too. It's not like immediate drop. It was gradual and it was over time. So it took us time to really notice that there was this problem to begin with. And it was really clear that the barcode scanner was the story. So this is the chart of the share of just total written reviews. And at peak, almost 40% of all of our reviews were negative reviews mentioning the barcode scanner. So really on Android, this was the story, that we locked the barcode scanner. People were pretty upset about it. And even 12 months later, 1 in 5 new reviews were still about us locking the barcode scanner. So we might have been able to wait this out, if you can do that math, 40 to 20 over 12 months, maybe in another 12 or 24 months, it would have been back down. But back to the previous slide, we would have been well below 4 stars at that point. So we really needed to decide what we were going to do and take a pretty drastic action in order to reverse this trend that we were seeing. So we can't just wait it out. And this is kind of going into what is really useful with our users, but in this case actually hurt us. I don't know about all of y'all, but I've had many different weight loss journeys in my life. I'll hit a weight I'm unhappy with, get really serious about logging and cutting calories, get back down to a weight I'm happy with, get comfortable, start gaining weight again, and kind of repeat that cycle over and over again. And that's not uncommon for our users as well. Weight loss for a lot of people is cyclical, and that's a pretty big user base for us, these reactivated users. And we define reactivated users as a user who has logged food and then hasn't in over 4 weeks and then comes back again. So that's why this was that sustained shock that we were seeing. It's not like, we made the decision and then all the people who were gonna be mad about it were mad about it and then we were done. Someone who wasn't on the app when we locked it came back 6 months later, they got mad all over again. So it's this just compounding thing of every time a returning user came back, they would then be the most mad person we had. So it just, a thing that's normally great for us, these reactivated users, in this case, was hurting us the most. And I think, Kate is my favorite here. In 2018, they gave us a 5-star review, and then 6 years later, went back and updated it to a 1-star. So going from 5 stars in 2018, 2024, 1 star. So this was, and these were a couple examples, but there's countless ones of these where people specifically saying, hey, I'm dropping this score specifically because you locked the barcode scanner. And as you can imagine, New Year's is a big time for us. I've made many resolutions, some I stick to, some I don't. So do our users. So we knew come New Year's, this was going to be another massive influx to where we had the potential to get a ton of new bad reviews and ratings coming in. So we really, this was the time that we needed to make an action and do something about it. So we came up with this 2-front fight. And this chart will kind of spoil it a little bit, but we did have a dramatic reversal and kind of more than we could have ever hoped for. It was certainly more than I thought was possible that we could do just by doing 2 relatively simple things. It was a joint project between product, myself, and the growth team with Danielle. We targeted loyal users, and we created this deliberate platform disparity, which we'll get into both of those, but doing those together dramatically reversed this trend, and we actually ended up now with a higher Play Store review than we had before we locked the barcode. So it ended up working out eventually, but it kind of took us some time to learn the lesson of like, hey, we need to change something. So what were the things that we changed? And I talked about this, how we try not to have a platform disparity, but this was a case to where users were reacting incredibly differently, and I promise these are real reviews. They just happened to explain my point better than I could. So thank you, Kevin and Bella. But Kevin on Android said, "I'm fine with ads, but I do not own one app that I pay for, and this one will not be the exception." So thanks, Kevin. But there, Bella on iOS says, "Do this constant barrage of ads, would never purchase it." So clearly, there's these two separate worlds that one solution is not going to make both of these people happy. And again, these are two examples. We have countless of reviews that are very much like this. So in some ways, we wanted to call their bluff. So we came up with this idea of what can we do for a new monetization strategy on Android that will separate from our monetization strategy on iOS, which was working and we weren't seeing that user backlash. The thing that was new and the thing I was most worried about would be, is there going to be some cross-platform anger? Like if we do something different for Android, are we gonna get a bunch of iOS users writing in saying like, hey, how come Android users get that, but we don't on iOS? So this was the thing I spent a lot of time with the customer care team on, coming up with scripts of like, okay, what do we say if someone does say that? But truly, we leaned into what the users were telling us, and shocking takeaway, listening to your users is usually a good idea. So the thing that we did was we found a middle ground. So we made the barcode scanner free, again, to users on Android, but now it's ad powered. So after you find and scan a barcode, you're served an interstitial ad, and then you can log the meal to your scanner. So it's still paywalled on iOS because, thanks to Bella, we know that iOS users would not put up with ads, but we wanted to try this on Android, and it really did work very well for us. Having these interstitial ads after this scanners, or after the food gets scanned, gives us a new source of ad revenue that we didn't have before. Now there's future ad tests we could do where we could tweak the frequency of how often those ads show up. But it was kind of this little bit of a scary thing of, hey, this is a new area for Android. It'll be like a separate code base. They're already separated, but it's a separate type of thing that we have to manage on Android that we don't have on iOS. But we, short of totally reversing the decision and losing all the gain that we saw on iOS, this was really the only path forward that we saw. And really, so far, it has been a sustainable path forward. Our negative reviews dramatically dropped. I think what I said is the peak at 40%. We're down to around 2 to 3% of Android users. Like, some people are mad that we're showing ads now on the barcode scanner, but I'll settle with 3% instead of 40% of those users. And this was the one I was most scared of, but so far it hasn't happened, so don't go telling people on iOS this, but we have yet to have any sort of minimal backlash from iOS users, so it seems like both user bases are relatively happy with the experiences that they have. And as mentioned earlier, our Play Store rating now is actually currently higher than it was before we locked it. Now, some of you who are doing the math here might think, okay, well, you dramatically cut off the negative reviews. That doesn't make your score go up just by not getting new negative reviews. So that's where it's this two-front fight that I talked about. So on the product side, we were able to cut off the negative reviews, which slowly would have increased our scores over time, but to get that dramatic, hockey stick chart up line that we saw, that's where the growth team came in and what they did on targeting those loyal users and how can we get those people who we know are happy with the app, how can we make it an easier path for them to tell everyone that they're happy with the app. So I will pass it back over to Danielle and she can tell us about that.
Okay, so how do we bounce back? Like Burton said, we fixed the Android experience, users were happy, support tickets dropped, we were getting positive reviews, and ratings were strong. But we still had the issue with our Google Play store rating, and that didn't reflect the changes that we had made after listening to users. We needed to reverse this. And to do that, we needed a lot of positive reviews. So we targeted engaged users and hit them with this pre-prompt that is a 4 smiley face prompt. And if users reacted negatively or had a negative sentiment, we would send them to give feedback in the app. And if it was positive, we would ask them about rating in the app and then send them to the App Store and then send them to the App Store. It worked. We were seeing more positive reviews, but we were seeing only a 3% throughput from people seeing the prompt to actually rating, so we could further improve here. So the first experiment, again, showed that this approach could work. We ran another one to simplify the process, so we went down to 2 smiley faces, and then if a user, the change here was if a user had a positive sentiment, we would just send them directly to the App Store. So we reduced that middle step, and with the 2 faces and sending them directly to the App Store, we reduced friction. So this worked. The changes helped simplify, and we got a high volume of positive ratings, as you can see. And as Burton said, we got back up to a 4.7 star rating in the App Store, which is higher than we've been before. But you can see where there's a switch of positive reviews and how that helped us get there. Okay, so what we learned. So we learned a lot from this journey and this process. And one is that early success can hide long-term problems. So the early signals were great, but we needed to monitor over time and monitor outside impact as well. Problems can emerge over time, so it's important to revisit experiments and maybe rethink about them in another way.
And then for point 2, we learned that the platform parity isn't sacred. We like to try to stick with that as much as possible, but when the data is as clear as it was there, we just can't stick with that. So there has to be times where even your sacred rules you have to be willing to break if that's what the data is telling you. So that was a lesson learned and a thing we continue to think about now for sure.
And then it's important to balance revenue and experience. So it's important to find a creative middle ground that generates revenue and preserves the user experience and value so it doesn't crash the way that we saw it crash.
And then for the last point here is just adapt when the trend is clear. Again, the data was telling us a pretty clear thing of, hey, this decision isn't working. So we kind of had to eat crow a little bit, but it ended up working out for us. And like I said, our rating score is now higher than it was before. So when you listen to your users and adapt to what they're telling you, sometimes it can work out pretty well.
So the key takeaways, which we kind of just covered, but are monitor long-term impact, plan for platform-specific user expectations, pivot confidently when the data tells you to, work cross-functionally to adapt even faster, and then you can also recover and come out stronger when something like this happens. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here and taking the time to listen to us. Feel free to ask questions or find Burton and I at the conference to chat through. Oh, we have a question.
Yeah.
So we targeted, I think, this moment in the app just because we knew users were having a good experience, and so it felt like a natural time, like after they logged their weight or like had a good experience, that we would ask them to rate at that point. So it was also a timing of when we hit them. So it wasn't just hitting all of the users; it was trying to get them when they've had a good experience in the app.
Yeah, and two, to add to that also, the timing we did that was towards the end of the year. And generally, like we talked about with the New Year's resolution, if someone is logging food in November and December, they're a pretty dedicated food logger. So it kind of like worked out that way also. It was like, hey, we knew these were the kinds of users who were most likely to leave a positive review as well. Yeah, good question.
Yep.
Sorry.
Oh. For the iOS app, you mentioned that you took them straight to the App Store. So was this like some kind of deep link into writing a review or something like that? Or
On the ratings prompt, what happened after they clicked on it? That was your question, right?
Oh.
yes, so you tap on a smiley face and then straight.
Yeah. So what happened after they clicked it? So it would be, if it was positive,
Yes.
yeah, we'd say, when you take the time to rate us in the app, and then we push them to the App Store, or the Google Play Store, and then in the second one, we just went right from the positive sentiment to putting them to the App Store. So we skipped
Okay.
that middle step.
Okay, okay. And straight to like writing a review inside the App Store, basically?
Yes. Here, I can show you again what it looked like. Oop. So it was this page here.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I think there was another, back there.
So I was wondering, what was the time frame of this whole experiment from the start to finish?
So I'm trying to think, we locked the barcode, I think, early in the year, and then around like the fall is when or like summer and the fall is when we started noticing the trends, and that's when we kind of did this. So I would say it was over maybe 6 months of seeing this like negative reviews come in, and that time for it to like hit our reviews, maybe 8 months, and then we started doing this work and eventually doing the ratings prompt work. But overall, I would say it happened over about 9 months. But the time for fixing the product and us fixing the ratings was probably 2 months, like within the 2 months of us working on it simultaneously.
Yeah, I'm curious if you've seen the effect decrease at all. So, something novel kind of comes out of the gate hot. So, I mean, maybe it hasn't been long enough, but I'm just curious if you've seen any changes.
Sorry, changes in what? Sorry, I missed the first part.
So, like, you've had very positive results with doing this change. I'm curious if those results have decreased over time, as in, like a little bit of a, I don't know, saturation effect or something.
It definitely was kind of a perfect mix for us at the time, because when we launched the updated review prompt, we saw like a huge spike in initial positive reviews, and that's for sure leveled off too. But it was at the same time that we changed the product to where we stopped having the negative backlash in. So yeah, we're not getting the massive influx of positive reviews as we did when we launched that feature, but the timing for us worked out perfectly to where like those coincided together. But yeah, it's the effect of that. Like, I know we still get some, but it wasn't the huge increase that we saw initially.
Yeah, and just having that that star rating in the Google Play Store has just helped with acquisition too, and new users coming in and seeing that positive trend.
And then I guess my follow-up would be, are there any other ideas that you're already thinking about that you want to try or experiment with?
I mean, it was pretty clear, at least from the product side, that we had to do something around the barcode. Like, so many of the reviews were talking specifically about that. We might have been able to try getting away with only doing the ratings prompt and keeping the barcode locked, and then it just would have been a battle of, what's that decay rate from 40% to 20%? Like, how long till that gets to below enough to getting the positive increase? So we toyed around with that, but because, the reviews were getting below 4 stars, we needed to take a pretty drastic action. So if it wasn't that much of a decay or like that drastic of a decline, maybe we would have had some more options, but we also may not have made this call in the first place if it wasn't that drop. So yeah, it was I don't want to quite say a fire alarm, but it was a pretty hey, we need to do something real quick about this.
And I think it's something that we could consider on iOS. We haven't seen that same hit, but if there's a time where we need to recover, we did look into running it on iOS, and we had some challenges that we're still working through.
Question up front.
Was there a difference in new to brand versus, that seemed like a lot of your old customers because they were used to the barcode scanner being free? So for new people coming in, did they not like the fact that you had it locked?
Yeah, so that was an interesting thing, is like new users don't know that the barcode ever was free, but because so much, if they saw the App Store and read any reviews, scroll down 5, you'd see 2 of them talking about how they took away a free feature. So it's like, even if they didn't discover that in the app, enough of them, I mean, we don't know for certain, but I'd imagine enough people were reading the reviews and impacting that. So like I said, maybe over time, those new users would have canceled out those reactivated users, but we would have gotten fewer new users. Like, I don't download a lot of 3-star apps personally unless I have to. So it's kind of that balance there of like, yeah, over time it might have worked out, but it was a tricky balance.
And I think too, with competitors locking the same barcode, it wasn't as unusual for users to see that because there were some big ones that were doing it at that time.
Yeah, but as we saw earlier too, is like what the amount of apps went from like 2,500 to 5,000 just total. So it's like we're getting tons of new competitors that weren't in the space previously too. So it wasn't just, you know, the few other big names that you've heard of. There's more and more small people that we're competing with as well that those people could have bounced to, which may not have been there in the past.
So one of the things I think makes a lot of sense for changing parity is like you assume a user is on one platform. You never really have to deal with them discovering, if you will, the difference. When we've looked at this, a concern that runs to the back of my mind is, okay, if a web-based experience like a website or a support article has to explain this, I'm curious if you saw specifically user feedback coming through channels related to that content or how you approached it to mitigate the impact of something like a website or support article trying to suss out that difference between iOS and Android.
Yeah, the cop-out answer I'll say is we don't really have a huge web presence for people logging their food on the web, so it's not a huge issue for us in that case. Now you've put me on the spot to be like, do we have like a web? I actually don't know if we have barcode scanning on our web platform. We don't put a lot of time into that web platform, so yeah, that's the main answer. I feel like I should know this if we can do barcode scanning on the web, but I'll double check that, yeah. But no, we have very minimal jumping cross-platform, like generally for a user, so it just hasn't been a major issue for us.
Hi. One of the issues that I'm sure a lot of PMs face as well is the internal resistance and this idea that parity is sacred. So aside from the data story obviously being so compelling, how did you combat the internal resistance specifically with developers who tend to agree that parity is sacred?
I think in this case, it was one of those things to where in a perfect world, all of our features would be free and we wouldn't need to make money. I think that would be nice. So this was one where we could definitely get the developers on our side of like, hey, we're actually making this premium feature a free one, so there was that kind of developer support behind that. If it was something to where it's like, hey, I actually want to take this other free feature but only make it paid on iOS, I think that'd be a much harder fight for me to do. But in this case, it kind of was like, yes, we want people to be able to log food, and we want people to like use the app as easily as possible. So there was this kind of like, hey, we feel good about this one. So that's where, if it's a decision everyone's on board for, it did make those conversations easier for sure.
And especially, I think, where it was framed as advanced logging along with the voice logging and our photo logging too, that kind of helped with that too.
Oh, one more question? Yeah.
I'm glad we did it. I think maybe we, again, would have approached it from like thinking about the platforms differently from the start, but I think we learned a lot going through it, and it was the right decision for a little bit of time. I don't think we could have understood the ratings impact, so.
And yeah, and the nice thing with this company too is we're kind of free to experiment with a lot of things, and you almost learn more when you fail at something than if just every test we did won. So this was like a good chance for us to be like, and in a lot of ways, the test itself was successful. Like it did increase revenue, but it was that over time thing. Like that was a new thing we hadn't really thought about before. So like this is a new lesson that I'll always remember when we talk about feature locking and that kind of thing is like, oh, how do we handle reactivated users? Like what are they gonna think about it? So yeah, it definitely was a, you know, could we have handled it? If we knew everything we know now, then would we have done it differently? Probably, but we wouldn't know those things unless we hadn't already done it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Any other questions? Awesome. But yeah, come find us if you guys want to chat more about it. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.